Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. As you can see, guys, I am traveling. Props if you can find out where exactly I am. Leave it in the comment section below. But we haven't talked extensively a lot about what's the general geopolitical situation we're going to end up with. And now I know there is plenty of news in Ukraine and around it, and we're going to talk about this. But to think about that, there was an article that just came out by General Zizni. Now, General Zizni is known to be the Ukrainian commander-in-chief and ex-Ukrainian commander-in-chief, and he had a very bright mind on how this war will develop. And I think he, in his recent work, he outlined some of the very important things that we need to talk about. And I'm going to leave the link to the article. You can read it yourself. I'm going to reference some things that he said in the article and kind of put my comments and how I think about these certain things. And if you find this interesting, you know what to do. The likes, shares, subscribes, whatever. So what General Zizni was talking about in his article primarily was that we are now in a world of transition, that the war in Ukraine very strongly showed that the military thought has evolved past the 20th century, that with innovations such as drone technology, one of the most prevalent, but also AI, new material and other things, we will now see a huge shift in transformation of warfare. And he does throw some stones to the Western allies, stating that obviously Russia is adapting much faster than US or Europe. But I think, and I'm going to argue a little bit here with the general, that we still do not feel that we are fully threatened with the war. And I specifically want to go to his point that he stated that the future of warfare is small drones, and that this is like small cheap warfare that is being mass produced, and this is definitely the future. And I think obviously he is right about this. We see that drones are extremely prevalent, but I also would like to kind of pivot his argument a little bit here, stating that the war that Ukraine right now is in is not going to be the same war that is going to be fought by the European states or the Americans. So I do not really think that it is correct for Europeans and Americans to now start mass producing and mass stockpiling these cheap FPV drones. I think it's important to think a little bit ahead. However, with that said, he did mention that our current rearmaments programs that are happening specifically in Europe, less so in the United States, but also we've heard the statements that drone initiatives will be multiplied also in the United States. But specifically in Europe, he expressed his critique that the weapons that we in Europe are purchasing are more tailored towards the old style warfare. So we are still buying the expensive toys, expensive armored vehicles, despite the fact that potentially they are somewhat of obsolete. And I think that, as I explained, I truly agree with him about this. But it's also important for us to understand that it is crucial for us to innovate going forward. So I think from what he said, we need to have two lessons learned. Firstly, it's great that Europeans are generally rearming is coming. It's really good that we are rearming Europe. It's good that we're purchasing new weapons, new technologies. The bad news is that we should be wary on what exactly we're spending our money on. And this is going to be a job for pretty much all of us. If we know anything, we know that our politicians are responding to the civil initiatives. So as part of the contribution from this video, I hope the viewers of my channel will act in this monitoring force, and I will act as a monitoring force to see what exactly is that our governments are buying with that refinancing money. And if it's just going to be some old school main battle tanks with no drone protection, with no thinking about how do they find this new style of warfare, I do believe that then it's going to be basically dead money. That's the output of security from those purchases is going to be relatively minimal. Then he also talks a lot about what this new type of warfare, the drone warfare, actually entails. And we already know certain things, right? You know, cheap munitions, high precision, it is able to target vehicles, but most importantly, what it is asymmetrical. We saw the Ukrainian Operation Spiderweb, that it was able to do damage that is counted in hundreds of millions of dollars by using relatively cheap technology to achieve that. And this threat is now fully on our side as well, because if you can say anything about our armies right now, is that we are focusing on having small armies with some really expensive toys chipped in, and if these toys are exposed and being just blown up, we've seen already German military, just some couple of Russian guys just snuck in with the flaming liquid and just burned out some trucks because they thought these trucks were meant for Ukraine. They weren't, but this shows just the vulnerabilities that we're having all over the place. Our security machine is not as prevalent as it is, so it's important for us to be ready even for these asymmetrical scenarios, and that's not easy. But more importantly, we see that these new drone technologies, that they are also fighting in the psychological space. I know we hear the news that Ukrainians are being bombed every day, that there are these drones that are flying non-stop. And to be honest, it is hard to explain to a person that was not ever in Ukraine just how much fear and terror is there when these hundreds of these drones, Shahed drones or any other strike terror drones, that are flying over our heads, and especially when the air defense is able to contain them partially. And to be honest, even oftentimes, even if these drones get shut down over cities, then the debris still falls, and like if, for example, the warhead didn't explode, and if it just was the wing that was chipped, then these drones just fall and they still explode. It's still a big explosion. So psychological warfare effort in these drone new technologies, we must never underestimate. And I don't know how we can prepare our societies for it. Definitely we need to have more preparations just to make sure that if there is something like this happens, then we have the full proper algorithmical understanding what is our course of action. And for that, we need more interaction from our governments to the society to have that algorithm and understanding what to do if. And that is not there yet. So I agree with General that we need to have defense integrated both in the what we're purchasing and how in our military, but also work needs to be done with the civilian sector. Not only for the fact the civilian sector might need to defend, like I don't really expect that it will come to this. I still feel that it will be our warriors that are going to be fighting, maybe our armed forces, our aviation forces and stuff like that. But most importantly, because there is like this prevalence of the terror drones and terror operations, we need to know what to do with this. We need to understand what to do in extreme scenarios, and specifically if we want to help each other in this thing. But to kind of end it, I don't want this video to be super long. He talks about that the world order that we built up after Second World War pretty much is crumbled, and we're now already seeing it coming to an end, and we're looking to what is going to be the new world order. For a very long time, I was extremely pessimistic. I was very, very sad that the reaction to Russian invasion into Ukraine was not there. Yet, slowly but surely, in a large sense, thanks to the community of people like yourself that are staying engaged, we were able to keep up the politicians and keep them focused on this topic. And I feel that while the momentum of us catching up to this new world or slipping away has been lost, that it's already started to change, I do feel that we still have the ability and power to build something better from it. So my point of the message of the video is that for a very long time we were operating on a paradigm that we need to preserve the old world order, and we need to then give way to any aggressor, whatever they want, only if there would be no more war in Europe. I think this paradigm is completely out of the window now. If it's not on the window and you see a politician doing something in your country, in your representatives, please call them out. They need to be called out on this. People must not live in the past. And for a longer time, because we were afraid that the world will change, we were afraid of Russia losing. Like a lot of our politicians are still somewhat operating the paradigm that Russia must not lose. And I feel that this is fallacious, and I do think that since we are in this transition stage, since we are trying to do something, the most correct way for us going forward, our best case scenario, kind of big geopolitical way going forward, I don't think it's going to be new for you, but my perspective is that Russia must lose, and I think the fear within our societies, fear within yourself that Russia might lose, that the nukes might go rogue or whatever, I think this needs to pass. We need to work on ourselves, we need to work on society, we need to continue writing our direct representatives, because General Zaluzhny has been shown that he has this bright mind and he definitely sees the future and he definitely sees where this world is going. And I tend to agree with him. And if you agree with me as well, please share these ideas. You don't need to share the video, but the ideas that I expressed in this video, please share it further. Thank you so much for watching Trust in Ukrainian Armed Forces. Videos covering the news, covering the situation on the front line will be coming in the coming days, and I'll try to record as much as I can while I'm traveling. I love you, and I'll see you next time.